Hello and welcome back to the Rise demo. Have you seen this? That's right, hidden from us until the latest trailer and now the demo, a new core mechanic is in Rise. And let me tell you, it is big. Suddenly we finally know what those blue numbers meant, because as it turns out, mounting in Monster Hunter has changed. With the Clutch Claw gone and world mounting gone too, this new system called Wyvern Riding takes the place, and man, does it improve the concept of mounting so much. As I'm sure Josh said in his gameplay video, we were lucky enough to play the demo a little early thanks to Capcom and community manager Socks, so a big thank you again. That aside though, my name is Solo, this is the new Wyvern Riding, so let's talk about it. Where to begin though? This new mechanic changes the way we approach mounted combat entirely, making the function of mounting more impactful and relevant, while also making it rarer and hopefully less invasive to general gameplay. As you can see in the main image, we'll be controlling a monster ourselves, moving around at will, even making it do attacks and combos, or unique monster attacks depending on the monster you've actually mounted. By binding the monster in Iron Silk, we take charge and use that monster for our own purposes. Completely new monster attacks are going to come with this. It's extremely powerful, and like I said, it's also rarer to do. To engage with the Wyvern Riding, we'll have to work to get the monster into their mountable state, just like we might have been doing the past few years. We can do this just as we have been, by dealing damage with aerial attacks, but these now need to be specifically Wirebug aerials, and on top of that, we can also use the new Silkbind moves to build this up too. But we can also let the environment help us out too, like when monsters attack each other, or certain endemic life like the spiders. This all builds up the mountable state, which we can see through the new visual. This damage is officially referred to as special damage and is portrayed by the new visual of blue, which is what we were speculating about just before this demo. Therefore, the blue numbers represent your build-up of the mountable state. And when a monster is ready to be mounted, you simply need to land another blow or sheath your weapon and press A to start that mount. Now things get really interesting. While mounted, we'll be holding R and then using the left stick to move around. And then we can force that monster that we've mounted to attack with either A or X, or even have it evade with B. That's right, we're essentially playing as the monster that we've mounted. That is nuts. At any time, we can also press Y, which will then dismount us and launch the monster forward. Upon impact, the monster takes damage and topples if it hits an object or a wall, and we can imagine that as the Clutch Claw mechanic, where we would send monsters into the walls, but now we get to aim the monster with the left stick instead of slapping the monster's face until it turns in the direction we're hoping for. This is just much more functional by comparison. In many cases, using the Clutch Claw, we send another roaming monster into our target monster whenever possible, because it would knock them both down and do good damage. That is also back in Rise, but with even better results. By launching a monster at another monster, yes, it will do great damage, but it will do special damage. So basically, if you can ever mount a roaming monster and use it to knock down your target, that will be huge, because you can get a mount off immediately. Based on how much effort it does require to pile up that special damage and actually perform a mount, multiple mounts on one monster in one hunt is going to be a lot harder and a lot rarer in Rise. So anything that helps you get multiple mounts should be considered pretty important. And yes, that is a Mizutsune you're looking at, and yes, we will absolutely talk about that and what that means in its own video. It is a big deal, but either way, in this footage, we do see the ride of a Izuchi all the way from one side of the map down to where Mizu is hanging out, so we can get even more mounted damage out on a target monster. The timer is pretty reasonable, so you have time to make a move like this. Plus, we can actually get multiple charges off at once while riding a monster. By just quickly pressing B with good timing, you can recover your footing on the monster, but stay mounted after a charge to do even more charges or riding effects. This works when you charge into another monster, but when you actually charge directly into a wall, the monster will be held down in place after it falls down by Iron Silk, which does give you a small window to deal even more damage after it gets up, holding it in place rather than letting it move around. But what about the fact that we're able to use the monster to attack other monsters? What's relevant about that? Well, by attacking other monsters while riding, you will fill up the Wyvern Riding gauge. Your monster will automatically aim and target nearby monsters to make this easier, but at full gauge, we can then unleash the brand new mounted Punisher attack. Each monster has their own Punisher, and these Punishers are big. Once this gauge is full though, it will deplete over time until empty, so you have until then to actually use the mounted Punish attack. And there's also a timer at the left of the gauge to show you how long you can remain mounted in general. It does run out eventually, and that time mounted will also be reduced by taking hits, so make sure to land your own hits and dodge theirs. Yet another thing we can do is cancel our attacks and flinches by pressing B to evade, which will consume a Wirebug unless you time it perfectly. If we use this evade just as we're about to be hit, this will actually trigger a counter, stunning the attacking monster. Rise loves counters. To reach the powerful Punish attack, we generally have to successfully attack enemy monsters, evade attacks, and maximize the time we have while mounted. You have to really earn that Punisher attack, but it's well worth it. On top of all of that, each and every monster has different attacks during the ride, so we'll need to experiment to learn which attacks are best per monster. They have different basic attacks, different combos. It's a whole new system to learn and use just there. X will trigger the monster's light attacks, while A will trigger stronger attacks. The light attacks are generally faster and safer, but you will get less build-up of the gauge in return, while the heavy attacks will fill up that bar in much bigger chunks and do much more damage as well, but you're going to be punished more if you miss these. A great example is Rathian's Heavy, which triggers the iconic backflip attack. It's so cool we can trigger this ourselves. It just looks and feels so incredible. The backflip does tons of damage, but also will poison the target that you hit, because that's obviously what it does to us. And just landing this one attack will fill up half the gauge, getting us so much closer to the Punisher attack. Being hit during this attack, however, will completely knock you out of the air and leave you staggered. It'll cost 1/3 of your ride time to be interrupted while trying to do that attack, so you have to use these correctly. So that's everything about the new Wyvern Riding we know so far. What a surprise reveal. Ultimately, this new mounting system replaces the world mounting and the Clutch Claw mini mount, then combines them into a new system that has more going on, it's more impactful, it's also more entertaining, but also rarer. Since you can't mount nearly as much, it's not something you'll need to constantly worry about, but it is obviously something you have to take advantage of whenever possible. Tenderizing is obviously gone, thankfully, but sending monsters into walls or other monsters is even more rewarding when you do it. However, as it turns out, I discovered what appears to be a rarer tenderized mechanic. Surprise? As I was mounting this Mizu, I managed to use the Water Beam attack on this Izuchi. This caused the Water Blight effect to instantly apply to Izu, just like Rathian's Poison would instantly apply with a Tail Swipe. As I triggered this Water Blight, the tutorial dude claimed that this has now softened the hide of the monster. This appeared to ever so slightly increase the damage I was dealing while that monster was affected by Water Blight. Previously, Water Blight simply caused hunters to recover stamina slowly, so obviously this effect works differently in Rise now when specifically applied to a monster. So how can we apply this effect to monsters for the increase of damage? Well, it seems like Endemic Life can apply these blights, but hunters themselves still cannot. Whatever the case, it means there are some new incredible effects in Rise we've never seen before via either Endemic Life or the new Rise riding mechanic. We're going to look into this and see what we learn. God, Wyvern Riding is so awesome. And the new way we can control the monsters to fight others for our benefit is almost like taking charge of a turf war and then having who wins decided by our own gameplay. I love how they've somehow used the Wirebugs in yet another weird and impressive way to add a new mechanic that also improves on an old one. And every monster coming with its own unique basic attacks and combos, those massive mounted Punisher attacks too. It's so cool. I think this could be a fantastic addition to the series in general, even after Rise, by taking those best parts of mounting a Clutch Claw and throwing away the irritating parts like tenderizing. I'm a huge fan of this, and I can't wait to experiment with every monster in the game that we can via all their unique attacks and effects used as their own weapons, basically. Compared to previous mounting, which is just spam attack and move here or there to avoid the damage the monster tries to do to you, this is so much more engaging and exciting. Plus, Josh was telling me that this whole mechanic is actually very comparable to the Monster Hunter stories in which we ride the monsters and fight with them, and the whole mechanic of filling the bar for a big attack comes straight from that. Apparently, Rise and the next stories game are going to be connected in some way, so yeah, seeing this new riding mechanic sort of aligns with that. So yeah, actually, the story story series has genuinely affected the main series in a really good way. So let me know, guys, what do you think of Wyvern Riding? I didn't expect them to change mounting in this way, but I absolutely love it. Obviously, I'll be back soon with more Rise demo videos to share all the new stuff we've learned. So until then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and I'll see you next time.